Okay, we'll go ahead and get things kicked off here. So, hey, I'm David York. It's been a while since we've had one of these, just because of the winter storm and all that. Thanks for coming tonight, though. Really appreciate you all. Thanks for the patience there while we were dealing with some outages and things. But yeah, welcome. Glad you're here. So before we get to the speaker tonight, there are a couple of announcements, some people we wanted to remind you of. So in a couple weeks, so that'd be the 27th of January, we have Sarah Arisman coming in on the state of the tech industry. It's going to be a pretty data heavy talk about basically the state of the tech industry, how jobs are, where they are, things like that. It'll be pretty valuable to attend, so we hope you show up. Tina Phillips is the week after that on data security, and it's actually a demo, so it'll be an interesting live demo. And we have a few others after that, but we're not totally settled on titles, so I'll let the mystery remain for now. But we're always looking to get new and interesting speakers. If you have a suggestion of someone you'd like us to get, please let us know. We'll try and get them. So something to remind people of, if you need this for a tech event, make sure to fill out the form in your class, in your open class. It's very important. If you don't do it, we have no idea if you attended or not. Please keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. You are welcome and encouraged to ask questions in the chat. We'll sort of ask those as they come through. The Q&A function is also open if you prefer to use that. That one's a little easier to keep track of, but chat is also fine if that's more your style. So yeah, really without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dima Strakovsky. He's the founder of Infinite Industries, teaches at the University of Kentucky, and it's his platform at Infinite Industries is a really cool arts and culture platform that he's going to dive a little bit more into. So I'm going to let him take it away. Dima.
All right. Thank you very much, David, and glad to virtually see everyone over here. So as David mentioned, the platform is infinite.industries. So if you want to navigate in the background and kind of see what's going on, go there, check it out, especially for those of you who are in Lexington and or surrounding areas. Please take a look at what we're doing, and there's also potential for us. We're working on expanding to a couple of other counties and trying and trying to bring cultural goodness to a variety of different areas of our Commonwealth. So I'm going to share the screen right now. And let's see. Can do it. Sorry for the infinite screen for 1 second. I promise. I'll get to this part. All right. So hopefully no infinity screen at this point, and we can start. Oh, and come on. It's supposed to be 2 seconds. Somehow it does not want to fill the entire screen at this point. Let's see. Yay. Nope. Yay. No. One more second. Okay. Yay. Much better. All right. So all the tiny little tech aside, Infinite Industries is a community arts calendar. It is an open source project. It's also non-for-profit. It's been around for roughly 6+ years. And for all that time, which is, in non-for-profit years, that's definitely dog years, we've been serving Lexington and surrounding areas. So what is it, right? So you get a little bit of a snippet of what we're doing here. So essentially, the very first thing that you get to see is an interface with a bunch of cards of variety of different events. We give you events from the very beginning, no advertisement, no bullshit, just straight things that are actually happening in the community around you. And the reason why I'm speaking so unkindly about advertisement is not necessarily because of any sort of, let's say, cultural biases against such things, but one of the things that we're seeing is the visual space, right? That is so important when we're trying to navigate like a list of events. Is very often if we're talking about sort of news aggregators and various other let's say lists of things, is very often populated by things that are in the realm of advertisement, which makes sorting much harder. Okay, so we do want to strive for legibility in what we're doing. We're very much kind of pride ourselves on good design practices. Right. So what were the drivers for the project? Like, so why did we decide to do this in the first place? Right. One was to improve discovery. So what we're seeing still to this day is that, especially in, let's say, the more adventurous parts of the art world, is if you know someone who is putting on a show, if you know someone who's sort of in the know, you get to be invited, right? And then otherwise, it kind of flies under the radar. And then everyone from the venues who is trying to put on all this programming, they're like, oh, no one showed up, right? And we're just kind of going like, well, I mean, yes, but okay, let's try to figure out how, again, some stuff might not be for everyone, but like, how does this actually get visibility? How do we improve discoverability of events, right? And then next sort of thing that we wanted to do was to centralize event tracking and event presentation. So why do we want to do this? Because very often different venues within the cultural landscape start scheduling things at the same time, right? So that's another like really common problem where everyone said like, oh, where is everyone? And everyone is at Joe's event, or you split traffic between Joe's event and your event, and Jane's event comes in, and we're like, but we just talked to Jane last week. We didn't even realize that she's having an event there. So what we're trying to do, right, is to have a centralized hub for cultural events. And we also do have a calendar interface that's specifically kind of geared towards the stakeholders who are putting on events, so they can see ahead of time if there is a cultural event, again, everything from like cinema to dance to gallery shows to whatever you want to do this. In fact, our users very often challenge us with what one would specifically define as a cultural event, because we try to go from pretty much kid-centered stuff to stuff that might be a little bit on the risque side. So as open of a definition as possible. So if you are doing something in the cultural sphere, please consider us as a place where you would list your event. And again, we're incredibly open to how we're defining cultural event. So back to the centralization point, right? So because we want to be a place that is pretty welcoming in terms of is pretty welcoming, but also is aggregating a number of different events. We very much take trust by events, by venues and event promoters as like one of the holiest things that we can have. Right. And this is one of the reasons why we decided to go with both open source, right, and a nonprofit model. Right. So it's essentially, like my little quip about advertisement. It's essentially we're trying to give ourselves as many internal um, kind of incentives not to feature advertisement, right? Not to take all the data and then turn it into kind of profit model for ourselves. We're trying to essentially align ourselves with the most open version of centralization play, right? Because quite a few different aggregators like this, essentially they're kind of their their conversation to the investor layer is very much focused in the power of the data, power of aggregation of the data, having some sort of leverage from that particular position, and we're very intentionally pointing to the power of centralization without trying to overtly monetize on it. Hopefully that made sense as again, like a very specific kind of like value statement, if you will. If there are some questions, please feel free to interrupt. Okay, then I'll go forth. So next, we're trying to interact with stakeholders' calendars. This was kind of this is very much facing both the people who are kind of the core audience of the site or site app, however I want to define it. And then we also, at the same time, want to have this ability for the venues, again, to kind of interact with their calendars and be able to schedule in relation to what everyone else is putting on their calendars. And, our hope is we're bringing additional audiences. And then the last part is improving reporting. This is kind of an important part of the overall design, right? So like we have this interface, essentially a database of cultural events with pretty thin API that allows websites and apps to dip into the database. It does have historical data now of 400 plus venues, and now actually a little closer to 3,000 unique events from the last 5 years and change of Lexington and surrounding areas. So we can start seeing some analytics trends. One of the things that we're trying to do in terms of reporting is create custom interfaces now for various different organizations within Lexington community. So essentially being able to see some historical trends around the events, around even potentially things that are very much focused on counties, very much focused on event types. Like, let's say if I wanted to understand what's going on in dance in the last 3 years in Lexington, I can, given this data. So it's very helpful in terms of having very real conversation about cultural sphere within our particular area. And we hope that this is a model that can actually grow beyond just Lexington, but this is home. This is where we can test out a lot of our assumptions. In that sense, Nonprofits are, I always call this, nonprofits are startups in slow motion, right? So we do exactly the same thing that any other startup would do, and go in with a bunch of assumptions and then let the world and actual real world users kind of challenge those assumptions. And we just do it a lot slower than a startup would. By the way, I do have a little bit of experience in the startup sphere also. So if that's where we want to take some of the questions after the initial presentation, we can do that. And since I'm not seeing that many questions, I'll try to go through the core of the presentation fairly fast. So we'll end probably in around another, let's say, 7 minutes. And that should give you like 15 minutes of presentations easy. Sorry, 15 minutes of questions easy. All right. So what's the recipe for sticking around? Meaning that most startups, just like most startups, most nonprofits, just like any other business, very much including startups, don't stick around, right? So, so why, right? What's the stickiness, if you will, of a non-for-profit? Well, a lot of it, and this is again very much like any other business situation, is luck. Some of it, and then probably the most important part of it that makes it fun is a team, and just kind of cultivating a group of people around you that are really dedicated to the task and are enjoying the task. We're an all volunteer crew right now. We essentially try to stick to things that are for the most part fun to work on, because open source can be an interesting undertaking. And another really, really, really important part of it is that we try to create a positive feedback situation based on what our users need and want, right? So, for example, I will be at Downtown Art Center this coming Friday for Gallery Hop. So some of it is signing people up for our email blast. So just as I'm saying here, hey, sign up for our email blast if you're in Lexington area and enjoy various different cultural undertakings. Go check it out. We're actually pretty good on music, for example, so you can find the latest and the greatest. And an important part there is beyond getting emails for the e-blast is to talk to people, figure out what they want, figure out what they like and what they don't like about what we're offering. And the don't like part is again framed very much in positive terms. It's like, hey, if there's a problem, how can we solve this, right? And that creates kind of this virtuous loop where we get to understand what our users actually want, and then also kind of get back amazing amount of insight, right, into like how to craft our interface to the cultural goodness around Lexington, Kentucky, right? And then the last part, like using your own app. I'm sure you've heard this whole statement about dog fooding your own app in the, again, this very startup-y kind of thing to say, are you dog fooding your own, right? So it's like, yeah, we are very much also the users of the app, right? It's very much here to scratch our own itches, right? So that once again creates a very much a positive feedback loop and a reason to continue. So very, very quickly, I'll go through here. So becoming a 501c3, which we are. So why do that? Because you can get a bunch of discounts and in-kind donations. So one of the reasons why we can function is because we get roughly $3,000 in free server space from Microsoft and a bunch of services from Google, right? Those are sort of our primary drivers. And since we're a 501c3, so federally recognized non-for-profits, we're also like, our filing is very, very easy. We're under 50K in, in like profits, turnover, however you want to define that. So it's a postcard that we file. I have to remember to do that this year to IRS, and just goes out there and then pay another $15 to the state. Done. It's generally a really good path forward, again, if you're interested in sticking around as a nonprofit. The way that this is done in the nonprofit sector, so a lot of you, since you're in the tech sector, doesn't mean that you can. Let me backtrack. So since you're in the tech sector, one of the things that you can do is be on the board of a bunch of different nonprofits, right? Pick a hobby, pick something that you're super, super passionate about. And one of the things that you can actually help them with, right, is if they're 501c3, they have a bunch of benefits that go through TechSoup. This is one of the organizations, in fact, the most important sort of accrediting organization in the tech field. And then through TechSoup, then you actually get all the benefits that I talked about. So things that we, in our case, get from Google and Microsoft, we can get this only because we have TechSoup accreditation. So that kind of sort of ends the scripted part of what I wanted to do. So I'll exit full screen mode and talk to you all in more open, unscripted way. Let me stop sharing also. And wanted to see if you have any questions. Please.
Yeah, I had one. On the last slide there, it said like streamed customer support conversations. I was just curious what that kind of meant. I might have missed it if you said it, but yeah.
Strange customer support conversations. Be prepared for strange customer support conversations. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So I was okay. I probably should have taken that one off, but what I meant is that where I wanted to take that is that as soon as you have a website with an open interface on the interwebs, then it's open to the whole entire world, and there's some really pretty awesome conversations. Sometimes you're just like, yeah, you're submitting an event for let's say Oakland, California. And you're just like, wait, no, we're actually not it, right? So kind of having, again, very open interface, but also like, be prepared for weirdness of the world. All right. What is the hardest part of running your website day to day? Okay, so the hardest part, well, there's a couple of things. One is stocking up all the events, right? So if we're doing internal submissions, that basically means that every week we have to look at specific sites and see if there's new things that we need to put in there. And then the other part is when the venues are posting, and that's, I would say it's about 50-50. self-posted to kind of to outside submissions, everything needs to be verified. So once again, because this is our submission form is open to the whole entire world, that means that we have to verify. So one of the things I'm going to be doing after I'm done here is going to be to verify a couple of events. We've introduced actually a few pretty cool features. AI boom has been very good for us. So part of our submission form now is AI driven. And then, but that still means that there has to be a human in the loop. There's no magic in this world. There's just automation. How do we generate funding? Honestly, we do not. That was so, like I said, we do get in-kind donations from tech companies. We have, like most nonprofits, we have grants that we apply for. So I get a little bit of funding from a few private foundations, and then some city-state entities, and then the rest of it is volunteer time.
I actually do have a question. So what, okay, so what makes you sort of take the jump and found something like this? Was it sort of a slow burn type thing? Did you build this over time with some people and then said, well, we should probably make it a nonprofit and then sort of build it that way? Or did you just set out with sort of the end goal in mind from the beginning?
Oh, that's a great question. So initially, I thought that I was creating an online gallery, right? This is like pre-NFT kind of days. So I actually had a model that did dip into crypto, but more blockchain than anything else. And meaning like leveraging the blockchain, not necessarily leveraging leveraging the blockchain only approach. How about that? Right. So the non-fungibility. And then kind of as I started talking to various stakeholders within the arts community, I was just like, this is going to be boring. This is going to be like another secondary marketplace. So like I would have to run around New York, figure out who's hot, and then offer digital copies of like what they were making. And that just didn't feel like it was about the community of people around me. So there was a hard pivot towards much more of a community calendar type model, because that was what was needed and it was not there at the time. Since then, there's been a couple of different community calendars that have come and gone, and also a lot of different trends within this sector. So, for example, like everything going through Facebook events, then absolutely nothing going through Facebook events. People saying email is the worst thing, to people doing everything, including very much their ticketing through email. And furthermore, also kind of leveraging the size of each organization's email list to kind of gauge what their projected user engagement was going to be. So kind of trying to figure out, okay, like who could be an honest broker in this changing landscape. So that functionality, I would say, very much evolved, but pivot to calendar was a very hard pivot fairly early on in the life of organization. Right. Oh, Sorry, I was going to jump to the question, and then did you have a follow-up?
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I guess though the early pivot made it easier to, you didn't have tons and tons of work done, so it was a little bit easier maybe to pivot that way, or is that not really the case? Was it pretty difficult changing so suddenly?
It's software. So yeah, there was a lot of work done, but
Fair, yeah, that's fair.
But it's also like, I think we're super lucky working with software where it's like, I would say pivots are cheaper.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Like that's where, like, like knowledge economy is quite amazing that way, where it's much more fluid by definition. This is where, like, hardware production has never 100% joined the knowledge economy, just because at that point, like, you have things that you've invested in, and we haven't. So it's as easy as any other software pivot. Let's just say that.
Okay.
Are you planning on covering events in a wider area, or do you plan to keep it relatively local to Lexington? So we're talking to UK's extension office right now about trying to partner with them to try to go outside of our like immediate Fayette County, and a couple of towns. I would say, like, like going as far. I mean, we've actually covered events as far east as Appleshop, so Whitesburg, but that's outliers for us. Like, I would say Louisville and Whitesburg is as far east-west as we've gone. So the bottleneck is human bottleneck, right? So we know now, after running this in Lexington for a while, that we actually do need to have a community-facing person. Most of the time, it's to kind of guide people through submission process. Most of the time, it's to kind of do some filtration verification. And without a person in a specific locale to kind of really talk to the community, we really don't want to grow. So this is where the conversations with, at this point, the conversations with UK Extension are moving, and they're kind of sort of moving forward, sure, all sorts of like fingers crossed. So the idea would be is that we are providing the tech infrastructure, and they're providing human in the loop. And I'm pretty passionate actually about human in the loop. Doing a lot of stuff right now around AI, and the more I'm doing work with AI, the more passionately I feel about human in the loop. I think, yes, we're making humans' job better, and to a certain degree faster and more efficient. But I would say it even highlights even more a need for that human in the equation, right? It like accentuates certain things where, like, like we're making stuff for people. It's like for people by the people, haha. But there only humans do certain parts of human connection well. And only humans trust other humans. So we want to really kind of make the connections much more strategic and much better by creating software with AI, not actually replace humans. Because I think that the replacing part doesn't actually work. Fundamentally, the only thing that we actually do is change scale. And I can go into more details about that if people are interested. Since it's open source, would someone be able to fork your platform for events in their own community? Yes. If people want to, they're very, very, very much encouraged to do that. It's under MIT license, so go with it. Make it awesome or make it better. Like, a few pull requests would be nice if you do, but but otherwise, yes, please. Anything else we want to cover? Where is it hosted right now? So it's on GitHub. So let me try to find it. Oh, wait. Let's get the repo on here. Can you hear me okay right now?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Just trying to. Yep. So that's the main project repo. So feel free to fork.
Quick question about that. So, if people do want to contribute, is there anything you want people to know before they contribute or fork or anything, or not really?
Nothing particular right now. We're trying to make it friendlier for people to actually contribute. I think we're, as I was saying, lots of things in slow motion. So, for example, right now we're still moving a little late to Vue 3. And so that's been a slow but steady progress. So it might be a little bit of a mess currently. But if you're super interested in the project, please talk to me. And then we can maybe get you situated with parts of the project that are a little bit in a little bit better stage. So yeah, our front end is in an interesting place right now. It's tech debt is real, people. And like I said, when you're working in slower motion, it accumulates in very interesting ways. Have you guys talked about tech debt?
Say we talk about it a little later.
Okay.
Some people may know what we're talking about, but elaborate, please.
Okay, sure. So a lot of times, especially if you want to move certain, like let's say, features forward, right? You kind of punt on things like, hey, we technically need to move our front end framework forward, right? Before we start implementing certain features. But then we're like, but then we will never ship any features. So at some point we can say that, like, okay, we're going to punt on certain updates to our technical infrastructure in order to actually get something that most people consider a new feature, right? Like us developers, we care about the latest and the greatest frameworks. We care about, well, stability everyone cares about, but let's say, like, really, like, going with, like, oh yeah, a major update to a core front end framework came out. Do we stop development for a new calendar feature, for example, and say that, like, hey, we're actually going to migrate everything to this new framework, or sorry, new version of the framework? The issue is, right, like, again, like, for us, we care about it, we see it. end user very often is completely oblivious to which framework was chosen, which version it is, like they just don't care, right? So we essentially we appease the product gods and ship a feature, and then we ignore the tech gods and accumulate debt with them. So that's the tech debt on the project. But the problem is when you're all volunteer staff and you're developing very slowly, right? You're much more affected by these new technological developments, right? Because they're moving at the speed of, you might be moving slower, but they're moving at the speed of the market. So we get hit with tech debt much harder, I would say, than a lot of commercial projects. Did that make sense as an explanation?
Made sense to me. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that it's a non-David person is telling you that as much as it's awesome, David, thank you, but you also knew the definition beforehand.
Yeah, true. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Mm-hmm. David, are there any things, because what essentially what are some of the things that you cover later on? Is there anything that I can talk about that would be a good preview?
Honestly, you've gone over quite a few things that are pretty valuable. So technical debt is really valuable, and then honestly, contributing to open source is really valuable. That's honestly the most valuable. Open source projects can be hard to source for someone getting into it, and so it's nice to have something. A good example of something local. But honestly, not that I can think of. I may think of something later, like at, 10 p.m. tonight, but not right now.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think, yes, contributing to an open source project does give you kind of a little bit of a leg up during the initial interviews, right? It is tough, right? Because projects that are popular in the open source community, right, very often, unless we're actually, even when you're talking about documentation requests, a lot of people are working on this. Excuse me, that's my phone. Yeah. So it's harder to kind of get into it. There are and then there's a lot of people with strong opinions about the style of contribution and such. So there's more of a ritual to them. And then on the other hand, a lot of the projects that are kind of like ours are a little bit more of a mess. So you have to jump in and talk to people a little bit more before contributing. So on both hands, on both sort of extremes, if you will, of that particular equation, there's still a human in the loop, right? So it is that you have to communicate with other humans, and ultimately that is the kind of the reason why I think a lot of people who are hiring care about wherever you've done open source contributions, right? Because it shows in very real terms how you deal with other humans in a in a very real situation, because it is open, it is on GitHub, GitLab, whatever source control you're using, right? And sometimes it's also you can kind of see how people are handling handling issues, right? Because let's face it, a lot of people in the tech industry are not the greatest communicators. So you already have a leg up or whatever up on the competition if you are. So I'll just put that out there. Is that a good note to end on? Be a good communicator.
I like it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that works. So if there are really no other questions, we can go ahead and wrap things up. I will be posting the recording of this later if you'd like to watch it again. I'll also be posting some links to Infinite Industries and Infinite Industries GitHub if you'd like to contribute or know someone who would like to contribute. I can also put you in touch with Dima if you have questions about how to best contribute or anything like that. But yeah, thanks a lot for showing up and talking to us, Dima. Really appreciate it.
Sure. Pleasure.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
After I turn
Okay.
off the recording.
Mhm.